All right, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry about the delay. It took a little bit longer than we thought. My name is District Attorney Scott Pearlou. I am the District Attorney for the 21st Judicial District here in Tangipahoa Parish. Behind me is Assistant District Attorney Matthew Belser. He and I were in the grand jury proceedings this morning. The grand jury heard from two witnesses regarding this matter this morning and returned true bill indictments. First, against Daniel Wayne Callihan, 9/13/87 date of birth. The grand jury reported true bill indictments, 2 counts of first-degree murder for the murder of Callie Joe Brunette and the murder of Aaron Brunette, 1 count of aggravated kidnapping of a child, and 1 count of second-degree kidnapping. With respect to Victoria Cox, the grand jury returned true bill indictments of 1 count of first-degree murder, 1 count of aggravated kidnapping of a child, 1 count of second-degree kidnapping of a child, and 1 count of accessory after the fact to first-degree murder. We presented testimony, lasted about 2 hours. As I said, the grand jury heard from 2 members of law enforcement regarding the investigation, and the indictments which I've referred to were returned. We hope to have Mr. Callihan and Mr. Cox and Mrs. Cox here for arraignment at some point in the near future. When, I can't tell you, but that's our hope, to have that done as soon as possible. Questions?
What have the conversations been with the other prosecutors in this case, and where do things stand working with the folks in Mississippi and the federal government?
I have spoken to the district attorney's office in Jackson, Mississippi. Also had a couple of discussions with the United States Attorney in the Eastern District here in Louisiana, New Orleans. I'm not aware of their plans. I take that back. The U.S. Attorney has indicated they are willing to and want to, I think, prosecute this matter in some respect. I'm not sure about Mississippi. We just felt like, and I still feel strongly, that this is the place where this needs to be handled initially. If we are done and it wants to be done other places, that is of course at their discretion. But this involves, first of all, it originated here. It involves local people here, and I feel strongly that this community deserves the right to have it ultimately resolved and decided here. Yes, ma'am.
Just when it comes to when they'll be extradited back to Louisiana, Callihan and Cox, any word on that?
No word on that. The indictments obviously are just happening, so that'll all be pursued and followed up on as soon as possible.
Do you believe the child was killed in Louisiana?
Do I believe the child was killed in Louisiana? I really don't want to answer specific questions about the facts. I mean, we feel like, we feel like obviously the investigation and the indictments that followed are appropriately charged, and we think that we have the sufficient facts, obviously sufficient factual background and support to support the indictments.
Can you speak about the difference between the aggravated kidnapping charge and the second-degree kidnapping? What's the significance of the difference there?
There's just different elements of the crime, that's all. I'll let Mr. Belser maybe address that in a second.
Is there anything you want to let the Brunette family know about how you'll go about this case?
I have spoken to the family on a couple of occasions, and they're aware of what we're doing. I'll say that much.
In the overall tenure that you've had as district attorney, put this in perspective to what it means to you as the chief prosecutor in this parish and to you as a citizen of Tangipahoa. Maybe just kind of give us some context and some perspective on your part.
As to what?
About the horrific nature of this crime in the overall context of your career and what it means in this community.
Well, a lot of the facts have been reported by you guys, and obviously, if this happened anywhere, it would be horrific and tragic. Happening where it did, it's a quiet community. These things don't happen like this very often here, so it's an extremely significant matter. I would expect it's devastating. I know it's devastating to the family, And I think the community, particularly in the Laranja area, which is a small community where everyone is aware of everyone around them, this is difficult to comprehend and accept. And look, we are certainly mindful of that. Wish it didn't happen, but here we are, and we all have a job to do at this part. Law enforcement, a couple of members are here today, have done their part, still working on this. I want to send out just a great gratitude for what their efforts have been in doing this, put in a lot of work, and they're still working on it. So it's a big deal, obviously.
To what extent did his confession publicly play a role in what transpired today?
Confessions are evidence. I mean, we're about evidence, so it played a role.
And I mean, it took more than 2 hours for you all to come back, you know, it started at 9 this morning, you all going before the grand jury. If you could talk about just those conversations that were held, you know.
No, held in the grand jury, I cannot do that. By law, I cannot do that.
Scott, how do you think this is going to play out, though, eventually deciding jurisdiction? I mean, it seems like that's going to be maybe, is that going to be a lengthy, complicated process?
Fair question. It's involved at this point. Hopefully, everyone will get to the table and have a seat at the table, that's fine, and work this out, you know, for what's best for a just result. And hopefully that'll happen. That's my hopes that will happen. The various agencies that have a role in this or may believe they have a role, hopefully we can discuss it and again, move this matter as efficiently as we can. And I think that's important for the community and the family.
Do you think that the feds will get the first opportunity to prosecute these two?
Not if I can help it.
You would like to come here first?
Absolutely. And for my reasons I stated earlier, I think it should be that way. And I've expressed that to the U.S. Attorney, and he's been very gracious in his discussions and expressed his willingness to work with us on this. I'm not saying he's wants to take a second position. I won't speak for him, but we have discussed it, and he's been very, very professional with it.
And at this time, you can't confirm if 4-year-old Aaron Burnett was killed in Louisiana, or you just won't talk about that?
I just would prefer not to open that up and talk about that.
Are you going to aim for the death penalty when he's persecuted under charges?
That decision has not fully been made yet. It is subject, obviously, the indicted offenses do carry the death penalty as a penalty. This could be capital cases. I would just like the opportunity to have more of a discussion with the family about this, that particular issue on the death penalty. Again, it's not all about me. I want to talk to the family. And I think in fairness, we should wait for the entire investigative file to come from law enforcement and the different agencies involved and review that before we make a decision. It's a big decision. I have my thoughts on it, but I'd rather not share those right now, but there's time to do that later.
To what role, I mean, he publicly asked, kill me, essentially. To what role did that play in this decision, if any?
And what decision, I'm sorry?
The death penalty decision, whether or not you're going to push for that?
You're asking me what he said, what he supposedly said or did say was on camera?
He has said publicly he wants the death penalty, that he is actively
Yeah.
asking to be killed as a result of these crimes. To what role does that play in your decision?
None.
How important is it for you to make sure this case doesn't drag out?
I'd like to think that's important in every case. Again, a lot of those issues and delays are outside of our control. But obviously, in any case, I think any prosecutor will tell you that delay doesn't really help a prosecution. We would like it to move as quickly as we can. But there's going to be a lot of work involved in this, particularly if it's a capital case. That makes it more prolonged and protracted with pretrial discovery and various other issues.
When are you first, I'm sorry, when are you hoping to get Cox and Callihan back here in Tangipahoa and put them before the judge to arraign them on these charges?
Well, I'd like to do it as soon as possible, but he is apparently located, as law enforcement tells me, in another state right now, being detained. So he has some rights with respect to being sent back to another state. He can waive those rights, and that would make it a lot faster process. We'll see how that happens. But
Scott, what would be the process, if you could lay out the process to get him back here from Jackson?
well, they'll be notified that there's a warrant issued as a result of the indictments today, and there are processes between the various states that we use, and they will use in the event he does not wish to waive his rights or waive extradition back here, where he's entitled to a hearing to determine if these charges are valid and if he's the proper person to be charged. And that's a little bit of a process to go through that with signatures, different channels, different agencies, and so that could take some time.
Could Mississippi fight it?
Could Mississippi fight it? You mean the agencies prosecuting or law enforcement?
Yeah, no, if they want first crack at him, could they say block him coming back to Kansas?
They could say it. I'm sure they could try it, and
Will we be
while he's physically, and again, this goes back to, I hope it doesn't come to a turf battle such as that over who gets what first, but certainly I would hope it would be handled professionally, and the end result would be what's in the best interest of this prosecution for the families and the communities
And
involved.
if it does become a turf battle, and if for whatever reason they say we want to hold him here, do you have any recourse at that point?
I don't know.
Okay.
To that point, how would you describe your conversations? Have they been productive with the other prosecutors? Would you say that they're willing to work with you on this, or how would you explain?
Yes, I think they've been productive and again, professional, and we may disagree on some things, but again, particularly with respect to the U.S. Attorney in New Orleans, he's been very, very nice and professional. Listened to my side of this and my points, and I don't want to speak for him, but I will leave it that there's been good discussions, and again, we don't have to agree all the time, but hopefully it'll work out.
And when it comes to the timeline of events, we now know that Callie Burnett was actually killed on Wednesday morning. The children kidnapped Wednesday morning. Did that play any role in the charges today and how you all went about the charges today?
I'm not sure I understand.
Just the fact that, maybe the crimes could have been, when it comes to the kidnapping, the children being taken to, Jackson, Mississippi, the crime may be being committed there when it comes to the younger girl. Does that play any role in what happened today?
Well, it all plays a role. If I understand you, it all plays a role. I mean, those are a lot of the facts that have been reported by the media. I won't dispute them. So yeah, it played a role. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
Did you watch his confession?
I did not. I did not.
Are you, do you expect this case to go to trial, or are you hoping for the sake of the community and the family that they plead guilty?
I'm sorry, what?
That they plead guilty?
That's not my decision. Your question is what I hope he would?
Yes.
Well, it would be a lot easier if all people charged with a crime would plead guilty, so I'll leave it at that. Yeah, if he would, but that doesn't happen very often, in my experience.
We have a question from a viewer. Could Tangipahoa afford a first-degree murder trial, meaning that it's a very expensive proposition, and it's hard. It's hard to do a death penalty case, and we haven't done it in a while.
Yes, I mean, that comes under not really my problem, but I'm not insensitive to it, but that is not a reason to, I would suggest not a reason to pursue it as a capital case if that's the decision made.
We could do it.
Absolutely.
Circling around on the comment, I don't know if the gentleman behind you is in a position to answer questions, but the difference between the aggravated kidnapping count versus the second-degree kidnapping count, what might be the significance and the difference?
Matthew, you want to address that?
Matthew Belzer, with the District Attorney's Office. In regards to that, there are different elements that are at play with each of those charges. Also, there are different sentences. Aggravated kidnapping of a child obviously carries a mandatory life sentence. In regards to the second-degree kidnapping, one of those elements is when a victim is physically or sexually abused. We do not feel like we have jurisdiction over some of the events that happen in Mississippi, but we do feel like this allows us to at least bring that in as an element to the charges that we have here. And so that is the strategy that we have taken in regards to that charge.
In Mississippi, obviously, they're both charged with sexual battery. Do
prosecutors, we're very limited on what kind of statements we can make pretrial in regards to the facts of the case. I would have to defer that to the trial on the merits.
Scott, when's the last time you prosecuted a capital murder case here in Tangipahoa?
In Tangipahoa, I don't recall. In the district, insofar as our office, I would think the last one that went through indictment and all the way through trial was State versus Gerald Bordelon, is my recollection. And that was in 2008, 2009, maybe.
But in Tangi, you had not.
I don't recall. It's been a while. Quite frankly, it's been a while.